Before you jump to conclusions, think about this. You've been watching the way he acts, reading his messages over and over, asking yourself if he's simply being kind or if something much deeper is growing inside him. But here is the uncomfortable truth that very few people talk about. Many of the things you believe are proof of love are actually only signs of interest. Compliments, extra attention, making time for you, trying to impress you. Those actions can happen when a man is attracted, curious, or simply enjoys having someone around. They do not automatically mean he is deeply in love. That is where so many people get confused. Real love works on a completely different level. It changes the way a man thinks, the way he reacts, and the way he quietly builds his life around one person without even realizing it. When a man truly sees you as someone special, someone he wants in his future, his actions begin to come from a place that goes far beyond attraction. And here is the surprising part. The strongest signs are usually not loud or dramatic. They are not expensive gifts. They are not constant texting. They are not over-the-top romantic speeches. Instead, they appear in quiet moments that most people overlook every single day. There are 6 powerful behaviors that usually appear only when a man's feelings become truly deep and lasting. These are not the actions of someone who is simply excited in the beginning. They come from a deeper emotional connection that slowly becomes part of who he is. Once you learn to recognize these patterns, you will start seeing the difference between temporary interest and genuine love in a completely new way. Stay with me, because by the end, you may realize you've been looking at the wrong signs all along, and what comes next could completely change how you understand his feelings. The biggest clues are almost never the ones everyone talks about. Real love hides in the quiet details. It shows up in small changes, in tiny habits, in the things he starts doing without planning them. That is what changes everything. So let's challenge one of the biggest myths about modern dating. You've probably heard that a man proves love through actions, effort, and consistency. There is some truth in that, but it does not tell the whole story. A man can make an effort for someone he wants to impress. He can stay consistent with someone he enjoys being around. He can invest time when he hopes to gain something in return. Those things alone are not enough to define love. Genuine love changes something much deeper. It reaches the part of him that no longer feels like he is trying to earn your attention, because in his heart he already sees you as an important part of his life. That difference is easy to miss if you're only watching the obvious signs. Keep listening, because this one shift changes the way you see everything that follows. Once you understand it, many moments from your own experience may suddenly make perfect sense. People often say men are easy to understand. They either like you or they don't. Their intentions should be obvious. But real life is rarely that simple. This idea has caused countless women to examine every message, every smile, every conversation, hoping to uncover what is truly happening inside his heart. The surprising reality is that many men don't even notice their own emotional changes until those feelings become impossible to ignore. Think about the difference. When he's trying to impress you, his actions are carefully chosen. When he's attracted to you, his attention feels steady but remains close to the surface. But when he truly falls in love, something inside him quietly changes. His way of thinking begins to shift. His natural desire to protect becomes stronger. He starts imagining tomorrow with you in it without making a conscious decision. He becomes emotionally more open than he has ever been before. None of this feels forced to him. It simply becomes part of who he is. Stay with me, because the next point reveals a difference that many people completely overlook. And once you notice it, you may never judge love the same way again. The real problem is that most people have been trained to notice the performance of love instead of the quiet presence of it. We pay attention to the things he intentionally does to prove he cares while missing the actions that happen naturally because they come straight from his heart. We admire effort, but often ignore instinct. An instinct tells a much deeper story. A man can be thoughtful with several women. He can be charming, supportive, and even emotionally open in different situations, but there are certain changes that happen only when one person becomes truly special to him. Those changes cannot be copied forever because they are not part of a strategy. They grow naturally from his emotional connection. His priorities begin to rearrange themselves without him noticing. His decisions slowly start including you. His daily habits begin making space for your presence. These are not calculated moves. They are quiet signs that his heart has already made its choice.
That is why understanding these behaviors is not just about reading his feelings more accurately. It is also about recognizing your own value and refusing to settle for temporary attention when lasting presence is what you truly deserve. And what comes next may be one of the clearest signs of all, so don't miss it.
Here is something that surprises many people. From an early age, many men are encouraged to deal with problems on their own. They learn to stay strong, solve things quietly, and avoid becoming a burden to anyone else. That is why a meaningful shift happens when a man begins bringing you into the difficult parts of his life instead of only sharing the good moments. This is not about overwhelming you with every emotion or expecting you to fix everything for him. It is something much more natural than that. When work becomes stressful, when family issues appear, when difficult choices keep him awake at night, he starts wanting your presence, your opinion, or simply your quiet support. He feels safer knowing you understand what he is carrying. He doesn't reach out because he is weak. He reaches out because somewhere deep inside, he no longer sees you as someone outside his world. He sees you as someone standing beside him inside it. That kind of trust is not built through attraction alone. It grows when love becomes strong enough that sharing life's hardest moments feels as natural as sharing its happiest ones. And believe me, the next behavior becomes even more revealing. He doesn't simply pull away and deal with everything by himself. Instead, he invites you into the middle of the process. That difference may seem small at first, but it reveals something much deeper than most people realize. I remember hearing about a woman named Emma who experienced a moment she never forgot. Her partner was offered an incredible job in another city. The opportunity promised a better future, a much higher salary, and a fresh start. It could have changed his entire career, but it also meant leaving behind the life they had built together. Instead of accepting the offer first and telling her afterward, he called her before making any decision. He wasn't asking for permission. He wasn't looking for someone else to carry the responsibility. He simply said, "I can't think about this without thinking about us. I want to hear what you think before I decide." That single conversation told her more than months of romantic words ever could. A man who sees you as temporary often makes major choices alone and updates you later. A man who truly loves you naturally includes your voice because, in his mind, your future and his future are already connected. Listen carefully, because this quiet habit speaks louder than almost any grand romantic gesture. There is another layer that many people never notice. When a man brings you into his challenges, he is not only sharing information, he is sharing influence. He is quietly saying that your thoughts matter, that your perspective deserves a place beside his own, and that your opinion carries real value in the direction of his life. That kind of trust cannot be forced. It appears naturally when emotional connection becomes deep enough. You can see it in everyday moments. Maybe he tells you about a disagreement with a close friend, not because he expects you to solve it, but because he wants you to understand what happened. Maybe he opens up about worries over his parents' health because he wants you to know what has been weighing on his mind. Maybe he talks honestly about uncertainty at work, difficult career choices, or goals that suddenly feel complicated because he respects the way you think. These conversations are not random. They are invitations into parts of his life that most people never get to see. And once that door opens, it usually means much more than simple attraction. Stay with me, because the next point reveals why this kind of openness is so rare. Many people pay attention only to emotional words. They ask whether he says he misses you, whether he talks about his feelings, or whether he expresses affection often enough. Those things certainly matter, but they only show part of the picture. The deeper sign is whether he shares the decisions, pressures, and responsibilities that shape his everyday life. When he begins talking through important choices before they happen instead of after everything is already decided, he is treating you like a real partner rather than someone standing on the outside. He wants your ideas before he acts because your voice has become part of his thinking process. That changes everything. You are no longer simply hearing about his life. You are helping shape it. This is why these moments deserve more attention than dramatic declarations or constant messages. Anyone can send sweet texts for a while. Anyone can plan exciting dates. But allowing someone to stand beside you while you wrestle with difficult choices requires a level of trust that grows much more slowly. And trust built this way usually lasts much longer than excitement alone. Don't miss what comes next, because it explains why this behavior is almost impossible to fake. One of the strongest signs of genuine love is not perfection. It is comfort with being imperfect. Many men feel pressure to appear confident, capable, and completely in control. They believe they always have to look strong. But when a man deeply loves someone, that constant performance slowly begins to disappear. He becomes comfortable letting you see the moments when he feels uncertain, confused, or even afraid. He no longer believes he has to impress you every second because he trusts that your connection is stronger than appearances. He lets you see the real person behind the confident image. He asks what you think when life becomes complicated. He admits when he doesn't have every answer. He allows you into the parts of himself that most people never witness. That kind of openness is not weakness. It is one of the clearest signs of emotional security and lasting trust. It means you have become someone whose presence helps him face life, not someone he feels he must constantly perform for. And that is not a role most men hand to just anyone. It is reserved for the person who has truly earned a place in both his heart and his future. Real love often appears in the most practical ways, not the loudest ones. It quietly becomes part of everyday life until you almost forget to notice it. Watch the way a man carries himself around different women and you may begin to see a remarkable difference. Around someone he finds attractive, he may lean forward, hold steady eye contact, smile more often, or naturally match her movements. Those are common signs of interest, but when he is deeply in love, something much more meaningful begins to happen. His entire physical presence starts focusing on your comfort and safety without him planning it. This has nothing to do with jealousy or trying to control your life. It comes from a quiet instinct that grows stronger as his emotional connection grows. He naturally walks on the side closest to traffic. He takes a small step forward when unfamiliar people approach. In busy places, he gently creates space so you don't feel crowded or overwhelmed. Most of the time, he doesn't even realize he is doing it. It simply feels natural. Stay with me, because the next details reveal why these tiny actions often speak louder than the biggest romantic gestures ever could. I once heard a story from a woman who said she never noticed this pattern until one of her close friends pointed it out. Whenever she and her partner went out together, he was always quietly aware of what was happening around them. He wasn't looking around to get attention from other women. He wasn't acting nervous or suspicious. Instead, he seemed focused on making sure she felt comfortable. If the place became too crowded, he naturally guided her toward a quieter space. If someone stood too close, he adjusted his position without making a scene. If she needed something, he often noticed before she even mentioned it. She had never asked him to behave this way. He wasn't trying to impress her or earn praise. It simply became part of the way he cared for her. That is what makes these moments so meaningful. They come from habit instead of performance. They grow from genuine concern instead of calculated effort. And once you notice these quiet patterns, they become very difficult to ignore. Keep watching, because the next sign is even easier to miss. These protective habits often appear in very small ways that people overlook every day. Notice how he positions himself when the two of you are talking. He may naturally stand in a way that creates a sense of privacy around the conversation. Pay attention to what happens when other people come close. He might step a little nearer without thinking, not because he is insecure, but because his instincts quietly tell him to stay connected with you. As you move through a crowded place, his hand may gently rest on the middle of your back to guide you safely through the crowd. These actions are not dramatic. They rarely attract attention, yet they reveal something much deeper than words. The important difference is this: genuine care never feels controlling. A possessive person wants to manage where you go and who you talk to. A man who truly loves you simply wants your experience to feel easier, calmer, and more comfortable. There is no pressure, no unnecessary drama. Just a steady desire to make sure you're okay. That quiet difference tells you far more about his heart than loud promises ever could. Don't miss the next part because it goes even deeper than physical protection. As love grows stronger, this caring instinct usually expands beyond physical situations into emotional ones as well. He starts paying closer attention to what helps you feel peaceful and what leaves you feeling drained. If you're cold, he reaches for his jacket before you even ask. If you've had a long day, he naturally slows the pace so you can rest without feeling guilty. If someone makes you uncomfortable, he finds a calm way to ease the situation instead of creating conflict. He also becomes thoughtful about the people and environments he brings into your life. He wants conversations that lift you up instead of wearing you down. He notices the places where you smile more, relax more, and feel like yourself, and he finds reasons to return there. None of this feels forced because real care rarely announces itself. It simply becomes part of how he moves through life with you. That is why this kind of attention is so difficult to copy. Anyone can act thoughtful for a short time, but consistently noticing another person's comfort without expecting praise requires a level of emotional connection that grows naturally over time, and that quiet consistency is often one of the clearest signs that love has become something real and lasting. This level of awareness is almost impossible to act out for very long. It grows on its own. It becomes part of his everyday behavior without him making a conscious effort. When a man's heart truly decides that you are someone he wants to protect, care for, and see smiling through every season of life, something quietly changes inside him. His attention naturally moves toward your comfort, your safety, and your peace of mind. You begin to notice it in the smallest moments. The way he notices when you're uncomfortable before you say anything. The way he adjusts little things around you without expecting praise. The way he quietly looks out for your well-being, as if it has become part of his own responsibility. None of this feels forced. None of it feels like a performance. It simply becomes part of who he is whenever you're together. And that is why these quiet actions matter so much. They come from instinct instead of strategy. They come from genuine connection instead of temporary excitement. Stay with me, because the next shift surprises many people, and once you understand it, you may stop misreading one of the biggest signs of real love. This is where many women become confused. In the early stages of dating, most men naturally operate in what you could call performance mode. They want to make a strong impression. They choose their words carefully. They plan exciting experiences. They try to highlight their best qualities because they hope to win your attention and admiration. But once a man falls deeply in love, something unexpected often happens. The performance slowly fades away. At first, this change can even feel disappointing if you don't understand what it means. You may wonder why he no longer seems focused on impressing you every moment. But the truth is often the opposite. He has stopped trying to earn your affection because in his heart he has already started expressing it in a much deeper way. His energy shifts from proving himself to building something real with you. That difference is easy to overlook, but it changes everything. Keep listening, because the next examples make this transformation impossible to miss. When a man is focused on impressing you, many of his choices quietly revolve around himself. He picks restaurants that show his style, his success, or his good taste. He plans activities that highlight his creativity, confidence, or adventurous side. Even conversations may be shaped to emphasize his achievements, funny stories, or life experiences. There is nothing wrong with that. It is a normal part of getting to know someone. But as love grows, the center of attention slowly moves away from him and toward you. Now he starts thinking about the places you have always wanted to visit. He remembers the food you once mentioned enjoying. He pays attention to the little interests that make your eyes light up. The goal is no longer to leave you impressed. The goal is to see you genuinely happy. And that simple shift reveals far more about his heart than any expensive date ever could. Don't miss what comes next, because this is where the smallest details begin telling the biggest story. A woman once described this change in a way that perfectly captured the difference. She said that in the beginning, her partner planned elaborate dates that were exciting and impressive. They visited expensive restaurants, unique attractions, and places that anyone would enjoy talking about afterward. But as time passed, his focus quietly changed. He noticed how much she loved wandering through small, independent bookstores, so he started finding new ones for them to explore together. He remembered a casual conversation where she mentioned wanting to learn pottery someday, and weeks later he surprised her by signing them up for a beginner's class. Suddenly, every plan reflected something she loved instead of something that simply looked impressive. It wasn't about showing how thoughtful he could appear, it was about showing that he had truly been paying attention. That kind of care reveals itself through dozens of small moments. He remembers tiny details others forget. He notices what brings you peace. He looks for simple ways to make your day a little easier without expecting recognition. Those quiet acts rarely attract attention, but together they create one of the strongest signs that his love has become something real, steady, and deeply rooted. He begins remembering the little things that matter to you, even when they have nothing to do with him. Your favorite coffee order, the time your workday usually ends, the names of your closest friends and what is happening in their lives, the book you wanted to read, the movie you casually mentioned months ago. The small details that most people forget somehow stay with him. Over time, making you smile becomes rewarding all by itself. He is no longer thoughtful because he hopes it will earn him something. He is thoughtful because your happiness genuinely matters to him. That quiet change reveals something important. It shows that his attention is no longer focused on winning your approval. It is focused on adding comfort, peace, and joy to your everyday life. Watch carefully because this is one of the easiest signs to overlook, yet one of the strongest indicators that his feelings have become much deeper than simple attraction. Stay with me, because the next shift explains why this change often confuses people who are only looking for dramatic gestures. The deeper truth is this: when a man stops trying to impress you and begins naturally looking for ways to support you, something inside the relationship has changed. His choices are no longer guided by the desire to look impressive. They are guided by genuine care. He trusts that you already know who he is, and he no longer feels the need to constantly prove his value. This is why some women mistakenly believe his effort is fading when, in reality, it is simply changing form. The flashy surprises may happen less often, but the thoughtful moments become more meaningful than ever. Instead of planning experiences designed to look exciting in photos, he begins creating moments that leave you feeling understood, peaceful, and emotionally connected. He stops asking himself how he can appear more interesting and starts asking what would make your day a little brighter. That is a completely different kind of love. It is quieter, it is steadier. And it usually lasts much longer than the excitement of first impressions. Keep listening, because the next sign reveals one of the biggest emotional changes a man can experience. Many men spend years building emotional walls around themselves. Life teaches them to carry problems quietly, protect their feelings, and keep certain parts of their inner world hidden. Over time, this becomes a habit. But when love becomes real, those walls often begin to disappear in ways even they do not fully understand. This does not mean he suddenly shares every thought or talks about every emotion all at once. Instead, his emotional world slowly becomes more open to you. Conversations that once felt uncomfortable begin to happen naturally. Topics he usually avoided no longer feel so difficult because he feels safe sharing them with you. He starts telling you not only what happened during his day, but also how those moments affected him inside. He shares the worries that keep him awake, the hopes that motivate him, and the thoughts he normally keeps to himself. Most importantly, he stops feeling like he has to filter every emotion before letting you see it. That kind of openness rarely happens by accident, and what comes next explains exactly why it matters so much. The reason this shift is so meaningful is simple. Most men do not become emotionally open with everyone they meet. They become emotionally available with the woman they trust deeply, the woman who feels safe enough to receive the parts of themselves they usually keep hidden. I remember hearing about a woman whose partner had always been quiet whenever the subject of family came up. He was never dishonest. He simply kept those parts of his life private. Then, after many months together, something changed naturally. He began talking about the difficult relationship he had with his father.